Hello, this is the Horizon Editors Roundtable for the week of September 17th. This week we'll be talking about the smoking policy on campus and what we think about it. On today's board we have Scott Gillespie, Caroline Bryan, Ian Hoops, me, Jared Clapp, Gavin Camp, Mary Q. Burton, and Maria Barnard. Is it me again, or is someone else starting off?
You're the host.
All right. I'm not a smoker, and I've almost smoked one time, but I've never smoked. Yeah, I know. But I still think students should still have the opportunity to smoke on this campus, and people can say that paying $2,000 in semester tuition isn't a justifiable reason. I think that's perfectly justifiable when you're paying to go to a public university and you're not allowed to exercise a civil liberty like that. But anyway, in case you didn't know, the policy is you're not allowed to smoke anywhere on campus, even though people still do, except in your car in the parking lot. And let's also talk about the environmental standpoint on that. People aren't going to smoke in a hot car outside, or a cold car for that matter, in the winter. They're going to turn on their car, they're going to get the heater or the air conditioner going, and you're looking at a lot of emissions coming from the parking lot.
We're getting a lot of CO2 suicides out there getting their cigarette fix.
Yeah.
It won't happen. Smoking on campus is... Look, I don't know that it's improving IUS. I don't know that it's not improving IUS, but I think some people are making a bigger deal out of it because, as Jared said, people are still smoking on campus. I mean, I've seen pretty much at least one person a day in the past week, so they're going to find ways. They're going to still smoke. They're not going to their cars. I've seen people standing by their cars. They're not getting in their cars.
Well, I understand not wanting, like, people would stand outside of the buildings to smoke, like right outside the doors. And maybe people didn't want to walk through the smoke, but let's not be a big baby here. It takes 2 seconds to walk through the doors. It's not like you're, being that affected. Yes, the
you're
people
stuck in a car.
Yeah, you're not sitting, in a car with the windows closed, inhaling it. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but we're all adults here. This is not a Louisville restaurant. You should be able to smoke on campus.
Well, that's just another huge load of garbage as far as the Louisville smoking ban goes. I hate smoking. I'm the jerk who will come up to you while you're smoking and tell you, that's 7 minutes off of your life, right? And it is. And I'm a jerk for it, and I don't care. But I'm not going to tell you can't smoke. And I think that's disrespectful. And I understand that this is, it's owned by the IU, and they can make the rules for it. But by the same token, smoking is a right. You have a right to smoke if you want. I don't think that should be restricted. But IUS owns the campus. It's not that big of a deal. People smoking. And Caroline said people used to stand near the doors and smoke. Well, originally they enacted a policy that said you had to stand at least, 20, 30 feet from the doors?
30 feet.
30 feet from an entrance when you smoke. Problem was, and someone was discussing this in class the other day, problem was you leave all of the garbage cans and the receptacles for your cigarette butts up by the door, and people naturally hover around those. If they just moved those out to, further away from the buildings, we probably wouldn't be going through this right now. And as far as that Louisville smoking ban goes, if I own my restaurant, I should be able to allow people to smoke in my restaurant.
Now, in all fairness about this policy, another thing to consider is that this was top-driven from Bloomington. This is something that they wrote up last year. So this is something that's being imposed on every IU campus in the entire state. And from my understanding, there were efforts to look into smoking huts and gazebos and stuff like that to put on campus so people could go and smoke there instead. But from my understanding, the IU Architect's Office said, no, that would cost too much money, and you can take that for however you want to.
I would prefer a hut to a gazebo.
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know how
That's
many
what
of you had actually
That's all.
been up to Bloomington recently, but I was a student there for a year as a freshman, and they enacted the same, standing 30 feet away from the entrance policy up there when they enacted it here. And they actually tested some huts for people to sit and smoke in, and people used them. So I guess it would cost too much money to build them system-wide, but they tried them in Bloomington in a few areas, and that seemed to work very well.
The big deal is this is money driven. They've gotten federal funds for the signage. They've gotten federal funds for the support programs. They've gotten federal funds for everything. Basically, they're getting paid to outlaw smoking on campus. I don't smoke. I don't care. I don't see why it's a big deal for people to have to go to their cars. But in the same respect, they didn't bother me when they were out there. I mean, like Mary said, you walk past them for 2 seconds. If you stop and talk to them or whatever, that's your choice anyway. It doesn't bother you enough to stop and talk to them. I think it is a little bit of Big Brother enacting its will, but as it all said, it's money driven.
What are they going to do when people live on campus? It's going to suck when you can't even walk outside your home and smoke a cigarette. You have to walk off the campus instead of just walking out your door.
Oh, the students are likely to smoke in the dorms anyway.
I don't-
It's
Or jump
Have
the
they-
jump the fence over to the train tracks. That's what I'm saying.
Have
That's-
they how has anybody
My
gotten
friend-
have they done anything to anybody who's gotten caught smoking?
From what I understand, the enforcement policy is the most passive enforcement policy I've heard on anything. I mean, you don't even get ticketed for it. And that makes sense because it'd be impossible to do that anyway, to have that much of a police force going around. They've got better things that they need to do.
It's like Demolition Man, where every time you have a little alarm and the citation comes out of the thing in the wall.
Well, that
That's
just comes
actually
back
kinda
to
cool.
Yeah.
that just goes back to the mech suit.
Right.
We need the mech suit to take care of things. Yeah, well, as far as dorms are concerned, I hate to keep referencing Bloomington like I'm better than everyone else. I know
No, that's
about
fine.
Bloomington.
Well, that's where it came from. So.
Yeah, well, my friend spent his last year there in the summer, and they started that August 1st, and he was still in summer school for a couple of days when they started it. And people in dorms, he says RAs just started smoking in the dorms because they just couldn't take it. Because you have to, I use a big campus, you're on a dorm on campus, you have to probably drive away to get a cigarette. So it was either people were quitting smoking or they were smoking in their dorms because they didn't care. And the sad thing is, it's probably what will happen here.
Can we replace activity fees with smoking fines?
We do, well, where did the parking tickets fund go? That goes to its scholarship, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, so, we could set up hey, here's a scholarship for the people who were ticketed for smoking. I got tacked on $70 to my bill of tuition a couple of years ago because I had some outstanding parking tickets or whatever that is. But
Congratulations, Jared. You got a standing parking ticket. It's
Yeah.
not just average.
Well, actually, I just had them and just never did anything with them. But not to keep referencing the Louisville smoking policy, but it's like you said, it's not a Louisville restaurant. We're not worried about the health of
It's
children.
outdoors.
Yeah, and we're not worried about the health of children at this point. We're not worried about worrying whether or not we're exposing kids to carcinogens. We're adults, and smoking, on the books, you have to be 18 legally to buy cigarettes, and if you're legally allowed to buy cigarettes, and if you're on public property, which this technically is, you should be allowed to smoke.
That's right.
They should build a little pontoon on the little pond we have, and excuse me, in between classes, take little tours, so that way if you drop your cigarette, it goes in the water, so nothing's in danger of going up in flames and.
And fish love
Eventually, the
cigarette butts.
filters
Get on those
soak
things,
up all
like-
the water and the pond disappears.
Well,
That's true.
That would make the
Just
kids
like a
go
big
away.
dam.
Well, they're draining it anyway, so
Oh,
So
then
they're
that's
gonna
not a
find
bad
that body
idea. And then
bomb
they
they
could
could
just
do.
they could
Right.
just shovel them out afterwards.
right.
Squish the filters back down to put the water back.
One of the big
that are
problems.
in there? They're huge.
One of the big problems with enforcing it is going to be, it's not like a parking ticket or something. I mean, you should have your so-called day in court, and that just creates more bureaucracy on campus. So I think that's why the police really aren't.
Oh, I don't mind that they're taking a passive approach to enforcing it. I think that in itself is a bit of a statement to the policy. And I'm getting the signal to wrap this up. Smoking policy, we don't like it. What do you think? Write to us. Let us know what you think. Thanks for joining us on the Horizon Editors Roundtable. We've had a fun evening with you. That is, if you've watched us. You have a good night.